We're looking at number 7 on our practice test. We're looking at the relationship between a graph and an equation. And the question asks us which one of these equations represents this graph. So I'll remind you, we're looking at intercept form. Intercept form, that's what intercept form looks like, where we have y equals, and then we have a constant number. That constant number is our y-intercept. And then we have a term with a variable, and that variable is going to have a coefficient. The coefficient of the variable, the number being multiplied by the variable, is our slope. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this line and try and figure out the y-intercept and the slope so that we can come up with an equation. So first thing, let's look at the y-intercept. So again, the y-intercept is where our line or where our graph crosses the y-axis. The y-axis. So I'm going to follow this line and I'm going to wait and see where it crosses the y-axis, which turns out to be right here. So from this point here where the y-axis and the x-axis meet is our origin, is our 0 point. So from there to get to here, I need to go down 1, 2, 3. So my y-intercept is at -3. -3. And then my slope or my rate of change is going to be the change in y divided by the change in x. Another way to think about it is it's the rise over the run. One more thing to think about with slope is a positive slope is going to look something like this, where it moves upwards from left to right. And then a negative slope will look something like this, where from left to right, the line moves downwards. Okay, so when we take a look at this line, the first thing we might notice is its slope is definitely going downward. From left to right, it's moving down. Therefore, the slope is going to be negative for sure. Now, let's look and see, look at this rise over run, the change in y over the change in x. How does that show up on the graph? What I like to do, what I think is most clear, is we pick out 2 points on the line, 2 points that have, where you can tell what the ordered pair is. So this one, this starts out at, that's -2, -1, -2, -1. And then this one here is at 0, -3. 0, -3. Now it's kind of hard to read. And what I want to see is how I'm going to move from this point to this point. And we can use something they call a slope triangle, where we go down and then over. You can see here with this line and these two sides, we've created a triangle. This vertical portion of the triangle is going to be our rise. And then the horizontal piece of the triangle here is our run. Another way to think about it, the rise is the change in y, and the run is the change in x. And that will tell us what the slope of the line is. So in this example, I'm going to go down 2 and then over 2. So my change in y equals 2, and then my change in x equals 2. So my slope is equal to 2 over 2, which simplifies to 1. So my slope is going to be -1. Okay, so now let's take those 2 pieces of information and we're going to plug them in to our equation. So equation intercept form always starts out as y equals, and then we have our y-intercept, so that was -3, and then plus, not plus because it's a negative slope, it's minus 1x, and 1x we can always write as x. So I'll rewrite this, y equals -3 minus x. And does that show up over here? It sure does. Number A, letter A. Okay.